now. A new study estimates that more than 9,000 insects and other native invertebrates have become extinct in Australia since European arrival in 1788, and between 1 to 3 additional species become extinct every week. Dr Jess Marsh is from the University of Adelaide School of Biological Sciences. Good morning, Jess.
Good morning, Patrick, and morning to all your listeners.
This new study, is it ongoing or has it been completed?
So we got the results from it and the paper was published just the other day. So our study found, as you mentioned, that far more species of invertebrate have gone extinct than we had previously expected. So the currently officially recognised number is 10 invertebrate extinctions in Australia since European arrival. However, our study shows that figure is way underestimating the number. And importantly, we predict that there's going to be an ongoing rate of between 1 and 3 invertebrate species lost a week. And that's a really huge amount. So whilst these findings have only just come out, we'll be continuing the work to try and work out which species are now most at risk and really how we can best protect them.
Well, can you walk me through the process of what went into the study, Jess? What were you finding and how were you doing it?
Yeah, so what we did is, so basically with Australian invertebrates, there's lots and lots and lots of unknowns. So a lot of what we had to do, we had to use better known taxa species from Australia and globally. So what we did is we took the known extinction rate of Australian mammals and lizards, and so they're much better understood. And we then extrapolated that rate to the number of invertebrates in Australia to give us one estimate. The other thing we did is we looked at the IUCN Red List, which is a global list that lists the extinction risk of species. And we looked at that and took the known extinction rate of invertebrates, so the bugs, the spiders, the insects, the slugs, the snails, globally. So we looked at how many are going extinct globally, and then again extrapolated that back to the number of Australian invertebrate species. Pulling all that together, we came up with our estimates with also upper and lower bounds of confidence. So we had upper ends and low. So the 9,000 species is kind of our best guess, the kind of middle ground estimate. How
long did this whole process take then?
So the study itself was running through over a few months. It was because it was a largely desktop study. We worked together as a team to get those results done. But as I said, this, we've known for a long time that invertebrates are at a really high risk of extinction. There are some species that are only found in really small areas, and if a threat such as fire impacts that area, then there is a high chance they'll go extinct. So whilst this particular study was just over a few months, for many years now we've been knowing that there's threats to Australia's invertebrates, and moving forwards we'll be putting a lot of effort into trying to work out what's happening.
So how then are you able to inform your predictions heading forward?
So the predictions for the rate moving forwards, we took the rate, so since 1788, since European arrival, we took the rate of species that had gone extinct per year and then extrapolated that forward to predict how many may be lost moving forwards. We also, by doing this, we took into account population change, because the more people that are here, the more pressures that are put onto habitat through land clearance and things. So we took that into account, and then through that we came up with 1 to 3 species a week.
So Jess, should we be worried at these findings?
Look, I think they're a wake-up call. I think people often don't consider the importance of invertebrates to us, but they are really the building blocks of our natural world, our agriculture and our way of life. So they pollinate our plants, break down leaves and organic material to get nutrients into the soil, help control pests, etc. And people often ask, why does it matter if we lose them? And so a good way that I like to think of it is, if you imagine the world is like an aeroplane, where the invertebrates, the bees, the spiders, the beetles, the slugs, the snails, are the nuts and bolts of that plane. And as a few nuts and bolts fall out, we can continue to fly the plane, probably not noticing much, the odd wobble here and there. But as that increases, the risk increases. And we just need to work out how many more nuts and bolts need to fall out before we do have to stop and take notice and actually do something about it. And I think that's where we're at with the invertebrates. We need to think of them as a kind of building blocks to our ways of life.
But I guess in air travel then, Jess, if one bolt is probably loose on a plane, that triggers an immediate let's look into it and find out what the cause of the problem is. So from there, if we are seeing some of these nuts and bolts getting loose and dropping away, is it better to be looking at what we can do to be proactive rather than reactive?
Absolutely right. Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. I think the first step in this really is awareness. We need the government, we need people, we need society to be aware of the invertebrates, about what they do for us and also at their risk of threat. But on a practical side, there's so much we can do to try and make things better as a country and as individuals. So, for example, for all of us, by having nature-friendly gardens and green spaces, planting local native plants and reducing the use of pesticides, we can all make a difference. These gardens, these little green spaces in cities and towns, all together, they make up a really quite large amount of land. And so if we all did our bit to put native plants in, to stop spraying pesticides and to make them invertebrate friendly, then that adds up and that can really make a difference.
And when you take a look at your study and your findings and your ongoing work then, Jess, will these sort of findings and what you're doing help inform, it could be policy development or initiatives in the environment? Can people draw to your research and what you have found and use that to inform decisions that will help maybe turn things around?
Yeah, we're very much hoping so. I think the problem with invertebrates in Australia, there are so many unknowns, and so we've never, up until now, up until our study, had been able to put numbers on these losses. Now that we've got these numbers, we can start having those really meaningful conversations with the decision makers, the policy makers, the government, and try and make sure that we can really get invertebrates included in that conversation, because they've been really absent up to now.
And Jess, when it comes to your findings themselves, are they publicly accessible? Can people listening right now who are interested in this topic go and see what has been found, what you have discovered?
Yep, they are. So they are publicly accessible. The paper itself is online and is open access, so anyone can access it. We also wrote a conversation article. So if you search up invertebrate extinction Australia, it will come up, and that's free for people to have a look at. And in that conversation article, we summarise our findings, but also have links to other relevant literature that people can have a look at if they're interested.
Jess Marsh, appreciate your time this morning.
It's been great to talk to you, Patrick.
Dr Jess Marsh from the University of Adelaide School of Biological Sciences. And that research, that study was looking into Australia's extinction tally. Some rather unique findings, and if you were interested in looking at it yourself, Invertebrate Extinction Australia, and you'll come across the publicly accessible findings.